All right. Afternoon, everybody. Good. How's everybody doing? Good. Excellent. All right. Good energy. I like this. So I'm Ritesh. As Igor said, a lot of people have been wondering, which is like Scroll Media, Factivo, what is going on? So Factivo is built by Scroll Media. But because we are now starting to think about Factivo as a product, I am sort of like taking on the cause of championing it as a product and starting to sort of represent myself as somebody from Factivo. But Sannuta and I are both part of the Scroll Media team. Scroll is, are we on? All right. Yeah. So yeah.
Sorry.
I think you can go back to that. Go back to that. We can. I can get to Scroll later, and then but this has been a theme since morning as well, right? There are journalists on one side. There are tech people on the other side. They don't know how to talk to each other. Both are scared of each other, but they both need to work together. And then how do we make that happen? So we have the answer for you guys, right? Sannuta and I have made it happen. We've been making it happen for years and years and years. And then, today we are going to share the secret sauce, with all of you. So there is an NDA at the end of it that you're going to have to sign. But again, we will sort of like take care of that in due course. Now coming back to business, right? So this is a core problem that a lot of organizations face, which is journalists every day are thinking about trust, as they should, right? Which is important because the users place a lot of trust in their content, and that trust is what makes them, sound authentic, look authentic, and drive that sort of awareness factor there. Whereas the technology people, and I come from a technology background. As part of the team that runs Scroll, I spent 17, 18 years at Google and then Facebook working on sort of products and business ideas, and then came into this, so I understand sort of like the other side a lot better. And then the tech people don't necessarily always sort of think about that part as deeply, the trust part and all of that. And then tech is famous for breaking trust every year for everybody, right? So how do you sort of bring these things together? So now quick sort of like feedback on why we did this at Scroll and what Scroll is. Scroll is an award-winning independent digital news publisher in India. That's a lot to sort of like take on, right? So essentially it's the digital and independent are the two keywords. So we famously say that at Scroll we have tech in our DNA. If there was no technology, Scroll could not have been started. So Scroll was the first endless, the reason why it's named Scroll is it was the first publication that had the endless scroll. And this was 11 years ago. Right, so this was somebody earlier sort of like said we were ahead of time, and we absolutely were ahead of time. We are one of those organizations that from day one, where engineering and editorial teams have worked very, very closely together to create great quality product that our people love and sort of come back for on a daily basis. And when I say we are an award-winning sort of organization, like the team, people like Sannuta will always downplay this, but Sannuta herself is an award-winning journalist who won an award, which is India's equivalent of Pulitzer for a climate story. And for a newsroom that is so small, so we are, as Sannuta said earlier, we are not a small, we are a tiny newsroom. We have 20 journalists for a size of India, which is 1.5 billion people. We punch above our weight all the time in all things, which is we win this India's equivalent of Pulitzer award every year under one category or another. So this has been a phenomenal track record. The team does a phenomenal job of going out there. And then again, as I said earlier, technology plays a big role in enabling the teams and doing everything as well. So we are one of those organizations that always see glass as half full. As Sannuta mentioned earlier, we are also cautiously optimistic about what this is doing, right? We are not in the camp where we are afraid of AI is going to kill journalism, right? we are in the camp where we see this as a force multiplier, and we think that we can do so much more with AI and with technology when it comes to high quality journalism. And that is how Factivo, which is sort of like the tool and the product that you will see today, was born. So what we started off with, we essentially started off with sort of like thinking, saying like, hey, look, this is a low resource environment, right? Again, so we have a very, very small team. We heavily depend on subscription revenue and sort of like some grants to run what we run. We don't necessarily have all the resources in the world, but our competition is with large newsrooms, right? So our readership in the US is reading New York Times and then Scroll. Our readership in India is reading Jagran or Indian Express or Times of India and then reading us. How do we compete with them? So that was one of the challenge. The other core issue, which is, do you optimize for traffic or do you optimize for retention? Right? You can't optimize for both. There is no such thing, right? Earlier today, we were having a conversation, which is how do you get word out to people? My core belief, again, having worked at both Facebook and Google and now Scroll, is organic reach is dead. There is no such thing as organic reach. You either have virality, which is very, very short-lived, or you have paid acquisitions, that a lot of companies spend a lot of money doing. Anything in between is very difficult on social media. You are essentially competing with 50 million other, people who are doing this. So in this scenario, retention becomes a really important thing. So what we solve for is we solve for retention with this. So the goal for creating this is to create highly engaging products that keep people who come to read the news there. They get them to engage a lot more. They get them to sort of, spend more time, get more context, become a loyal reader who can eventually be converted into a subscriber later on and create sustainable models. And at the end, again, I think I sort of like, briefly touched on this, that we are competing with very, very high resourced giants, people who were on the stage earlier today with, thousands of people in organizations. Those are the people that we are trying to compete with 20 journalists, right? So technology becomes a really big force multiplier in all of these situations. So with that, we created, what we call Factivo, which is a multimodal versioning platform, right? So essentially this is, and you will see when Sannuta talks about this, it's essentially how do you take one piece of news, one piece of information, and create multiple formats from it for people to engage with, to help them understand the news a lot better, to make that one piece of news article, a lot more useful than just giving them information. There are some things that we did that you will see a common theme throughout this, right? So essentially what we did in order to do this is we created what we call internally editorial guardrails, right? This is essentially a set of tools that we'll share later on as well in terms of how do you go about bringing the two sides together. And we did this by at the beginning, right? So again, there was another very interesting conversation today about how do you get buy-in, right? So the one thing that I'll share before we sort of go into the demo is when we first thought of this, we could only build this because of the Google's journalism grant. So we are extremely thankful for the AI lab and to the Google team as well, so that we had the grant and we were able to build this, which we are excited to share with everybody. At the beginning of that, even before we started building anything, Sannuta spent a lot of time with our editorial team to sort of get everything on board, which is all the early results. Every single piece of them was shared with the editorial team in a spreadsheet that has thousands of articles listed. A couple of people actually took time to read through and then give feedback. And that is where a lot of that came from. So the concept for editorial guardrails has emerged from that sort of like shared belief in something that we both valued, and we put trust at sort of like the center of it all, which is we want to create products and we want to create content that does not lose the reader's trust, that does not lose the newsroom's trust, and that it sort of like keeps that intact. So with that, I'll hand it off to Sannuta, who's our sort of like chief of AI labs. She's instrumental in helping build this product. She's the one who sort of like translates editorial to engineering to editorial, and sort of like and makes the magic happen. So Sannuta, over to you.
Fantastic.
You want me to?
No, I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll do it. So that introduction, very kindly by Ritesh, was essentially saying why we built Factivo, right? These were all the problems. All of us are very aware of these problems. We all live it on a daily basis. And what I'll show you next is how do we what did we build that our newsroom really liked, and they liked it because we built it in very, very close collaboration with our editors and our journalists. And then the last section, hopefully all of you can take away something from our learnings, and if we have the time, we'll do a small exercise, and we have a small framework that you can use within your teams, within your newsrooms, to see if it helps you, if any of our learnings help you, right? So Factivo, like I said, is a multimodal versioning platform for factual information. We started building this about 9 months ago, and we were very, very happy with what we built. We've tested it with a small number of users. They seem to be liking it very much. But what it really did for us is it was able to bust 3 big myths within our newsroom, so that our journalists can buy in to what we're building and we're doing with AI, right? So the first myth really was that journalism can only exist in its original form. All of us are used to producing television packages, audio programs, text articles, and then a lot of the time we think that that is all it needs to be or can be, right? But what we discovered is that you can convert a text story. So we are text first. We have, like I said earlier, we have about 500,000 articles within our archive. And what we started to look at is how are you able to convert a text news story into multiple things, right? So we did a short video. So we built a URL to MP4 tool, which was the first iteration of Factivo. We spent a lot of time, like I mentioned earlier as well, on over optimization, but we got it to a product and an output that our audiences really liked. And we took off from there and say, if we can do short video, are we also able to look at what other dynamic form can a news article take, right? So we built timelines, decision trees, calculators, sliders, mind maps, something we're calling a rabbit hole, which I will show you, a lo-fi news stream, which I will also show you, and unlimited FAQs, sort of inspired from Google's unlimited FAQs that they have on search, right? So let's look at sort of, a lot of you may have already seen sort of screenshots of this, but what I'll do today is show you a real demo of what it means to move from form to form. And, so you're basing it on verified reporting. A lot of these dynamic generations have fidelity to source, right? So this example, this specific example on the budget, and like I was mentioning earlier as well, that the budget is a huge festival in India. There are a lot of things that, a lot of stories that come out of the budget. But for our users, what we realized was one of the big things that they asked for was, what is my tax liability, right? So what we were throwing at them was a 500-word article of, let me just show that to you so that you know what I mean. Oops. So this is a typical article, right? If you look at it, finance minister said this, these are the tax slabs, and this is not sort of an anomaly. I would say every news organization does this, right? Which is, you have a lot of tables, you have a lot of text, a lot of these numbers, but what do they actually mean, right? So if you were to look at, so we added this button over here at the right-hand side, which creates for our users this little panel over here, right? So you're able to go into this same article here, and if you say calculator, it's able to dynamically generate a calculator for you. So this is exactly from the news article that you just saw. It's picking up those things and it's telling you if or not and how much tax you're payable. So if you say 12 lakh rupees is something that is your annual salary, you don't really receive family pension, your marginal slab rate, and all of these again are coming from the article. So you say a marginal slab is 30%. Are you eligible for long-term capital gains? what are your short-term capital gains or nothing, so you're able to do calculate, and you say for this particular salary within this particular regime, you don't really have to pay any tax. In fact, your tax has been reduced. The other thing we've added here is you're able to audit how it arrived at all of this, right? So where is it picking this information from? What is, and what are the numbers it's using to create this calculation? We've done a lot of testing on this, on the accuracy, and the accuracy for this particular format is always 100%, right? Let me show you another one. So the other thing where we are using our where we are using a verified reporting, we wanted to try an experiment as part of this challenge, right? Which is, we hear a lot that people are avoiding the news, people are really moving away from news, they don't really want it. I don't know why that went off. Oops. No? Should I just, there it is. It's mirroring at my end. Yeah. There it is. Okay, so we wanted to try an experiment where we said, are we able to change the emotion around news when people consume it? Which basically means, are we able to create like a radio program with our breaking news feed, which gets automatically added to the playlist with a connector, so that it's a long radio program and you can keep listening to it, and add a lo-fi bed to it and add a calming voice to it, right? So when you are folding your clothes, when you're doing chores, when you're washing dishes or whatever else, could we have a news program in the background, so you're also getting the information payoff, but it's not overly sort of affecting your mood, right? So let me just show that to you. If you could just play that. So this is how it.
Ministry of Home Affairs this week, and reiterated their core demand for a union territory with a legislative assembly for Kukizo areas, the Hindu reported. They said coexistence within Manipur was no longer possible, and that the talks in New Delhi on Thursday and Friday were attended by ministry representatives led by Northeast Advisor A.K. Mishra and by leaders of the Kuki National Organization and the United People's Front, the Hindu reported. The group said the two umbrella bodies are signatories.
So the idea is so each of these stories, if I take you to my, so if I say scroll.in, take you to my latest page. So each of these stories is added to the playlist. There's a connector between two stories that is attached, and you can listen to each of these stories as this very long radio program, right? So it automatically gets added. So the idea for us is to add this to our app, so it can be an on-app sort of audio experience.
And this is happening real time as stories get added to the latest flow. So there isn't a human interface here where somebody is going and clicking a button and saying, now make this video or audio, or what is the script here. It's sort of like all of that is automated in the back end, where as soon as a story is added to the latest sort of news feed, a lo-fi news story gets created and added to the player as well. For formats, it's the same thing. So you're not necessarily going and saying, this is a budget article, therefore there should be a calculator here, right? Our LLM in the backend is smart enough to actually identify and saying this story has an impact that can be best defined by a calculator, so then we will create a calculator. So it could be a tariff situation, it could be a budget situation. It could be one of those situations where, a calculator is appropriate and it's going to decide when the calculator should show up, right? So a lot of the formats that you are seeing are created on the fly dynamically, and not necessarily, there is no human intervention in creating this. The human intervention comes up ahead. As Sannuta earlier mentioned, this is all based on vectorized data, which means all of your archive, let's say, Sannuta earlier mentioned, we vectorize 500,000 articles at our end. And that's what powers a lot of the context that you will see, in future articles as well. So I think that is a very big part of this. This is not necessarily pulling live from the internet and saying, these are 10 different sources. It's actually using a lot of your own data, which is the real powerful thing here, which is what you trust. This is what the editorial room trusts and say, we've created this content. The input into this is really high quality. So we know that the output is high quality. And then in order to ensure that it doesn't hallucinate, that's where the editorial guardrails come into play, which are decided jointly earlier on as well. So.
Right, and taking off from Ritesh's point about the vectorized data, so this was a huge learning, right? The other things you're able to do tomorrow, for example, ChatGPT will be able to build you a calculator on the fly on Atlas. It's already able to do that. I checked it out this morning. It has, fairly good it's not 100%, but it will get there. And what would, protect really your, this form-to-form versioning are these guardrails that you add in, and also, the power of your own data, the power of your own sort of archive that would go on to, sort of add to this, right? So news story beyond its news cycle is useless is something we were able to prove and demo for our newsroom, and this was another myth. And this, so again, based on vectorized archives, and it unlocked our entire sort of inventory, right, for us. So let me just show that to you in this article. So these were floods that happened in August earlier this year. And yeah, this is again a straight article. If you look at it, it's not any different from any other usual article. And like always, something has to go wrong with the demo, but the button is not appearing, but it will.
But you have the Uttarkashi flash floods at the end, right? If you see that tab.
Let me see if it's loaded.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay, fantastic. So this button has appeared. These options for us have opened up. So if you click on timeline, what it's able to pool for us, and because our archive is now, it's able to contextually retrieve with temporal precision from our entire archive, it's giving you a chronology. Now, don't sort of necessarily focus on the design of it. What it's doing for you, it's able to contextually retrieve from any event cluster, right? So an event cluster in this case would be these particular floods that occurred in August, right? There could be other floods that have occurred last August. There could be another set of floods which occurred in June, right? But this is able to retrieve information and put this in chronological order for this particular set of floods, right? And this, if you're familiar with the news atom, anybody, we've tried to atomize a lot of our archive and see if it actually works in practice, right? So there you see it's sort of sentence level, and all these are retrieved, right? The other thing that I should mention to you, that a lot of, in fact, all of these formats other than one, what we're focusing on is direct retrieval based on what a journalist has already written and not necessarily rewriting it, right? So that cuts down your, it cuts down any cause for worry when it comes to hallucinations, when it comes to, is this going to have, are we going to have an accuracy problem and things like that, right? So if you look at this, it's given us, so these are stories from the 9th of August, as you can see, and it's pulled not only from the 9th of August, but it's also pulled it from the 8th of August here, right? And all this is live, right? Like this is not sort of on a screenshot or anything like that. This is from the 7th of August and all of that. And another interesting thing, when we were building this particular format, what we introduced as me as the bridge person and our engineer, we said, why don't we add, we have this information from this entire event cluster, right? What can we add to this for the user that that plugs some of these gaps in information, right? We are putting this entire event cluster out, but what can we add? So we added this thing called unanswered questions right at the top, or rather right at the bottom. But what our editors actually said when this was demoed to them is this would really help us on the inside. So in the CMS, when we're actually putting together a story or a follow-up story, what would help us is if this was surfaced to us on the inside, so that we're actually able to answer this instead of putting it out in the open and saying that, oh, we haven't covered all of this, but this would really help as an internal tool. Right. The other interesting thing in the same, for the same story, let's look at, which is expander, right? So this, again, what it does is it's able to give you relevant contextual information by clicking on, and you can, again, we're calling this format the rabbit hole. You're able to go deeper and deeper and deeper into each of these bits if you want to, but if you don't need to, you don't have to, right? And if you just want a little bit of information, this is more than enough. And then, of course, we have the mind map, which looks quite ugly at the moment, but what it's proved to us is we have, and this is again, an engineer sort of throwing everything we have at it. So we have, not only do we have complexity, we also have different modes, right? So we have radial, which looks like this, which then we have progressive. We're also able to click, untick and tick on entities and relationship types. But what we're able to achieve here is we have very good entities mapping that we can do based on our archives. Right? And this is huge for us, because this presentation may not be it right now, but we're able to sort of really open this up, and how we use it in formats is sort of the next iteration of it. But entities and relationship matching is sort of at 100% right now. Right? Yeah, these are the formats. The other formats are something I think all of you might have explored. So this is our version of how we are dealing with the 3-point bullets, which is, we said we're not really interested in doing the bullets again because it involves rewriting. But for this, are we able to take the 500-word article, 900-word article, give each line in it or each sentence in it based on our atoms a confidence score, and then surface what the TLDR is, what the tell me more is, and what the tell me everything is. So what we're doing is we are assigning a confidence score to our entire article, and then that is able to tell us what the TLDR is, and that's where we could stop. But you're also able to engage more with all of this.
Do you also want to do FAQ on this one or another?
Yeah. FAQs is again coming from the same. It's a different sort of visualization of what vectorizing your archives can do, which is, again, this is, if you want the TLDR version, this is sort of triggered by intense rainfall. The floods and landslides have occurred on Tuesdays, destroyed many homes, and this is sort of the basic version. But you're able to go deeper and deeper into our archive by clicking on each of these FAQs, right? How many people were missing, what agencies were involved, and again, you click on that and you're able to go deeper into. So you can choose to stop at the high level, But if you do want to engage deeper and deeper, you are able to go as deep as this would permit, which currently is like we haven't found an endpoint yet, right?
Endless scroll.
Endless scroll. Yeah.
I mean, if you work so hard to get somebody to the site to come and read a piece of news, it's in our best interest to sort of like keep them there as long as we can, both in their interest to make sure that they have complete information, and also to make sure that we have the most engagement and we are able to deliver the most value. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. So are you measuring the text blocks that readers are clicking on?
No, not yet. No, not yet.
So
Not
you
yet.
don't know how many people are
No,
actually
no.
expanding or not?
We've just built this as part of this challenge.
Yes.
So this has just gotten done,
Okay.
and we'll move into user testing and beta partners and all of that after this. But we've just finished building this, yeah. The other myth, and I think both Ritesh and I and everybody in our newsroom is really, really particular about this, is that machines don't, it's a myth that machines don't understand journalism's values of accuracy, accountability, and transparency, and they can be taught these, right? So we've built out this directory of liquid content, which is the structural mapping of what journalism on the web looks like currently, and how you're able to ensure fidelity when content moves from form to form. So if you go into this is what it looks like. It starts with how users receive information. So there's a content container, which is your text article, your podcast, your graphical visualizations, and all of that. It goes deeper then into what the format is, so how the information within these containers is organized. So is it a news alert? Is it an inverted pyramid traditional report? Is it an atomized report? Is it a backgrounder, FAQs, and all of that, right? And if you go deeper, and there are 51 of these, if you go deeper, you're also able to do building blocks, like, does this have a title? Does this have a section divider? How many paragraphs, and all of that? And then what channel of delivery are you creating these for? So are these for news websites? Are these for AI chatbots? Are these for voice assistants? So essentially what this map, when it is developed further, what it could do is you can say, I want to create a particular content format in a content container with 1, 2, 3 building blocks. For this channel of delivery meeting this particular user need, right? And I've used a placeholder for user needs, but these can be sort of tailored to your news organization. This is open source. We are creating an API version of this very soon, so you will have access to this if you want to use it, test it. So you're able to do this. So this is available at liquidcontent.xyz. So this is the structural layer. So when journalism does move from form to form, how do you teach it that structure, right? So this is helpful in that. The next part is, so once we have the structure, how do we extract sort of the knowledge and the meaning layer from it, right? Which is my work on the news atom, which is you're able to look at sentence level meaning making. You're able to break it down into subject, object, predicate, and this is how Google structures journalism, but it's also able to bring in things like what is the verbatim source, because source we know, a lot of these LLMs, or in fact all of these LLMs don't always sort of take into account. So President Donald Trump on Friday said you're able to break it down into subject, object, predicate, retain the original text, and for things like this, it's also able to take the date of the event and not necessarily the date of the publication, right? So when was this sentence said? This was said on that particular date and not necessarily on 23rd May when this was published, right? And even for a sentence like this, for example, it says Friday, and it's able to pick 23rd May here in the date, because it was Friday and it's able to pick the date of the event. So this is how we were able to very honestly convince our newsroom that using this technology, we are able to do good with it for our newsroom, right? And our editors, our journalists have built this and sort of, really made sure that they want to use this, right? So so we've done all that, we've busted the myths and, they now want to use it, but what we really sort of, learned from our newsroom was that our editors are not, AI averse, but they're liability aware, they're accuracy conscious, and they're quality conscious, right? So they don't mind using AI as long as the liability, the accuracy, and the quality is taken care of. There are going to be real silos, and these are, you can't, do too much to avoid it. They are going to be there. Our engineering team thinks very differently compared to our journalists and the rest of the newsroom. But how do you bring them together, right? How do you explain journalistic nuance to engineers? How do you learn from engineers, how to build in this ecosystem? So it's a back and forth that, and what could that translation layer look like, right? Is something that was huge for us. And the last one is, there are going to be 100 problems to solve within our newsroom, but what is that one real pain point that we can focus on and build on, right? What was the one thing that really could move the needle for us, but it's also a genuine pain point and not just something that we're hitting in the dark and expecting results out of. For us, it was to be relevant in video. I think in the last session I said that we're in a country operating with 700 million smartphones, where people watch more than 1 hour of video every day, but we don't have the resources as a small newsroom to be relevant in that space. So how do we bridge that gap and build something with video that builds off of the work of our journalists? So these were the 3 big learnings for us.
And I think the one thing that I'll add on this specific part, which is how do you choose a problem, right? I think the tendency is to choose an easier problem and then solve it and then go and saying, can this work or not? We actually took the opposite approach, right? Like we did not say that let's solve the easiest problem. Especially if any of you guys are decision makers, also please, encourage your teams to think about this as well and saying choose a difficult problem, and then see if you are able to, make progress with that difficult problem as well, right? Initially the chances are that you are going to fail, right? Like with video, we actually built a fantastic product, but we didn't need it at that time, right? But we learned so much from it by aiming high. It actually allowed us to do more. I think it's, if you pick like an easy problem, of course you will solve it, but then it's going to solve such a small problem within the organization that the buy-in factor that comes later on is going to be difficult, and saying, oh yeah, sure, it did some amount of automation, but it didn't really change the game. I would say, like, pick a problem that is likely to change the game and go after it, and then sort of, go from there. I would highly encourage that approach based on our experiences so far. So.
Yeah, we can do a small exercise right now.
So we have 7 minutes.
We have 7 minutes.
So we can do 2 things. We can either do a small exercise or we can take questions. So there are questions, I guess. So we do questions. and then what we'll do is we'll put up the exercise
take
on
you
this.
Through it, yeah.
Yeah. But we can do questions. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. It's impressive. Yes, thank you very much. Hello, it's impressive. And so news is one side of the game in the news industry. What are your thoughts about opinion? Because people also go on websites and news websites for see what the editor thinks and how to judge a news situation for them.
Can I take that?
Cool, of course.
So everything we've built is content agnostic, right? It's purely focusing on form. And the other thing I think I want to stress is that we were very deliberate about not using this for personalization with the vantage point of creating content silos. So none of this creates content silos, right? We wanted to make sure that even if you look at the news atom and how it's grounded, it's still grounded in what the editor thinks is the best expression for this kind of, and by editor I mean the newsroom and the person with the expertise, right? What technology and what LLMs allow us to do is to use that expertise and on the back end change these things for us, right? So it doesn't matter if it is opinion, if it is, it's a straight piece of news, if it's news plus, if it's features. This would work on, it's content agnostic, so it's form pro. So it would work on any form is the idea, and we were very deliberate about it.
Nelly, I think has a question. I'll come to you next.
Thank you, and it's very interesting to actually see it work. It does remind me of one of Journalism AI's very early programs. So there was a group who came up with something called modular journalism.
Yes.
Something like that does remind me about that a little bit.
Yes.
Because that has inspired a lot that I do. But I guess I have something I'd like you to clarify for me. Maybe who the core audience for the product is. Because on one hand, I see where newsrooms are the core audience. And on the other hand, I see where it's useful to the average consumer of your news. But I wonder if an average consumer can go through all that this tool can offer. So I would say, to simplify what I'm asking is, who's the core user and how do you see this being used by other newsrooms, or how have you imagined the use to spread,
So the core audience, very honestly, will depend from format to format. So how we're thinking about this is for something like a mind map or an expander or like a, even an FAQ for that matter. What we built it with the intent of is to help our really loyal users geek out on our news, right? Because we are giving them access to our entire archive, and our users in the past have told us. So another sort of context about Scroll is that, we realized this sort of retroactively and much to our delight, that because we don't do sort of a cut copy of wire copies, we don't do things that are not in our wheelhouse, we have a really, really dense and rich archive that is very topic focused, right? And our users know that, they are paying us for that, which means that, or rather, they have come to us and said, give us deeper access to your archives. We tried comments at one point, it didn't quite work. It was, there was a lot of weird stuff that was happening over there. But this gives us the opportunity for our users to geek out. So for these specific formats, it's an opportunity for audiences to go deeper into our archives. For a TLDR, for example, it's very similar to how a casual reader or a casual viewer would come and land on your site, and they want something quick, they want something small enough so that they can move on to the next thing, and we have that available to them as well. But I think the broader idea of this is to give you the news in a form such that it doesn't overwhelm you, to give you the news in a form so that you can consume it in whatever form you want in that moment that suits you. So today, it's a Sunday morning, I want to read a 2,000-word article, right? I have the bandwidth for it, I have the mental capacity for it, I will read it. But the same thing, I might be on the move and I might want to listen to an audio player, version of it. Or, I really have to quickly send this to someone, and, I can send a TLDR or a short video of it. So the idea here is to be able to dynamically move through form, but the news remains the same. And the ability of choosing what news goes out to the reader, the consumer, remains with the editors. I think we started from there. And so the audience, I wouldn't be able to pinpoint on exactly who the audience is, but it will depend. And even with the user, it will depend, you may not want to watch something now, you may want to watch, consume.
And the second part to your question, Nelly, which is how do we see the newsrooms using it, right? So I think for that, we want the newsrooms to have the same flexibility that we have, right? Which is, for example, you can decide in saying for these types of articles, I want these two formats to come up, when people are engaging. So I think there will be that flexibility. So like what you see here is what works for Scroll, right? But what works for your publication might be different. So let's say if you decide to use Factivo as the platform that powers that interaction, then you will be able to choose and saying, give me calculator and this for these types of article or this section and this. So then it really depends. This is going, when this becomes available to newsrooms, eventually it's going to be customizable in terms of how do the newsrooms use it, right? Because it's the underlying technology that's the real powerful here.
Have you thought about how it's monetized? Because I'm thinking with the TLDR, for instance,
Yeah.
in your newsroom or any newsroom that thinks about it, you can have that for short TikTok snippets.
Exactly.
And I think you can monetize like each modular version that it produces at the same time.
Yeah.
Like if you, as you expand beyond.
Yeah, so there could be different models as well. It's still early days, right? So yeah. Thank you.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. And there's one question here. So you can
Yeah, I
shout
think
out
we
your
have
question.
time for a quick one.
Yeah, quick one.
Really impressive.
Sure, just super impressive. And so practical questions. If a newsroom were to use this, would they have to vectorize their archive? And how did you go about it and how long did that take?
Got it.
And there was one other thing that will come. Yeah.
Sannuta, do you want to take that since you worked on vectorization as well?
Yeah, we did it in batches. So it wasn't really, let's archive, let's vectorize all of our, we did it in batches, we did it in topic clusters because we wanted to do very targeted testing around some of the things that we had deeply worked on and to see if it's able to have that temporal sensibility when you're able to, pull from one flood against the other in the same region. But we worked on it, I think, over 3 months. But it can take. I mean, if you say, okay, let's vectorize all our archives, it'll be much sooner.
Yeah.
And what about your governance structure? Dare I ask?
What specifically
So,
about it?
So what is your process to checking from everything from accuracy to bias, or is that work in progress?
It's a work in progress for sure, but I can say that every output that comes out, our editor-in-chief looks at. Because again, it's a liability issue for us. So everything that is audience facing at the moment and already out there, our editor-in-chief has looked at. But it's not. I mean, I should acknowledge that this is not possible at scale. Where you have everything that he will need to look at. We're thinking through it. Yeah.
Thank you. It's really good.
All right.
And with this,
I
think it's coming to an end.
Fantastic. I just want to we missed showing this, but I just want to quickly share this slide in case you want to take a picture or whatever. But when we were talking about the translation layer between what do you say to what do you need to say to a model when a journalist means things like don't change the quotes or don't speculate, it still needs to sound like us, or I want to see the original lines it's pulling from. So this was a lot of back and forth that me and the engineer, we went really sort of, to figure out what exactly does it mean and how exactly do you communicate these things to a model when you're building these things, right? So this was the framework that we were trying to sort of share with you. Maybe you want to take a screenshot of this as well. Which is, if you want to do this, for your own teams, for your own organizations, which is exactly what pain point are you solving, who does it help? So what editorial product translation do you need? So when a journalist says this, what exactly should you say to communicate that to a model? What are the guardrails that you're talking about? What does sort of scope look like? So what does the tool do? If we have to ship this in 4 weeks, what it doesn't attempt yet, and a journalist would use this tomorrow because, and this gives you the why statement, which for us sort of made it very clear that, this is what we needed to build. Perfect, done.
Thank you so much. A round of applause.
Thank you.